QS Chijoke Michael Iwagu is a trained quantity surveyor with over 15 years work experience in the Nigerian construction environment, holds a HND in quantity surveying and PGD in information technology with specialization in professional software packages. He's a cost estimator with expertise on professional estimating and computer-aided takeoff applications, Autodesk applications, Oracle, Primavera P6, and Microsoft Office desktop and web applications. QS Chijoke Michael Iwagu is currently the BIM/CAD administrator and software instructor at CAD Professional Systems Technology Limited and has gathered over 12 years software coaching experience with practical applications in construction technologies. He has championed several conversations and specialized trainings regarding practical applications of BIM in the Nigerian construction environment and is presently working on adapting the BESMM4 in typical BIM workflow. He's a member of the FCT chapter of quantity surveyors and the immediate past secretary of the Professional Development and Education of the FCT chapter 2021 to 2023 Senate. He is a quantity surveyor and a cost estimator with the technical departments of Arab Contractors Nigeria Limited and the vice president of Arab Contractors Cooperative Society. Oh, wow. It's a privilege to have you on board, QSCJ Michael. Thank you very much for all you've done for us with this training session. And we are really, really excited to have you speak to us on construction data analysis with building insights to construction business. QSCJ, without wasting much of your time, I would hand over the mic to you. And we're ready to learn from your wealth of knowledge. Thank you.
Well, thank you, QS Jamila. Thank you again, everybody in attendance today. I welcome us all back to the continuation and concluding parts of this series that we started since April 2023. Before this section that we are holding tonight, a lot of preparations have been made towards preparing our minds and at least exposing us to some of the things, the aspects, the processes that we'll be introducing tonight. So for the people that missed out that class, you can always go and watch the videos and try to catch up from there. Again, while we are preparing for these training sections, a couple of things came to mind. The importance of data in the life of a quantity surveyor, especially as it has to do in the Nigerian construction environment, was one of the hot topics that we have to deliberate upon. As important as it is, the committee came up with that we need to look at how to apply data in our everyday life. In different ways, I know presently we are applying data to get our jobs done. But in the course of this training section today, we'll be looking at not only how to apply the data, but also as a bonus, how to use some of the data analysis tools that is making trend in the world today. Just like we also introduce you to BIM, we also intend to introduce you to data modeling. It might not be a full stream course that will make you an expert in data modeling, but at least the intention is to give you the foundation that you need to pursue your desires, if you so wish, further in data analysis and data modeling. So without having been said, we know very well that data is important to construction. And this desire to always harness the importance of data actually came when people started realizing that construction shouldn't just be like a social responsibility. Construction is actually a business. And at the soul of every business is the interest of profit. Julius Berger is not constructing roads for you so that you have good amenities. No, their sole aim and purpose is to make profits. That is why in the chart that we have here, we try to show you, yes, you're receiving goods and they're rendering services, but at the tail end of it, there is always profit. That profit is more like the reward for the risk that they are taking, the construction businessman is taking, for the capital that he's investing in materials, labor, and other resources, and for the resources that he's also keeping there. There has to be a way of getting back some of those things to at least keep him in business. Now, oftentimes when you're looking at some of the basic information that we have, like they say construction generates data, huge data. That's what we're talking about, big data in construction today. But all these data that were being generated are often fragmented. Sometimes they are structured, sometimes they are not structured. And we always find it difficult to be able to harness all the data and extract the information that we need, or to be able to have an insight into what the data is telling us. The data, like in the medical line, is something like diagnosis. It tells you whether the patient is healthy or not. When you look at the data that is coming out from your construction businesses, you can actually tell whether the construction business is actually doing well or not, whether it's profitable or you're just trying to manage to get by. All right? So I know most of us already have some of this understanding before now. So we'll try to make this interaction the training tonight as interactive as possible. I will be calling out for questions. So please just be fast enough to respond so that we can give us a very good direction on how to make progress. So then the question may be, what are the types of data and the sources of construction data that we have? Like I mentioned to us, some of these data that we have around us, we may not even know that they're actually data, because they are existing in a structure that we don't understand. They are existing in a structure that we don't know we can actually tap from it. So what are the types? What I just listed here are just about a few types of data in construction, and as well as some of the sources of those data that we talked about. Now we have on the top list of them, we have construction data. Yeah, when you mention construction data, you may be surprised that some people don't actually know exactly what is categorized as construction data. But construction data are data that you can actually get. Most of the data that actually come to construction companies because of their experience, because of their participation in construction activities. All right. Then we also have some other construction data also that are coming from organizations, labor organizations, trade union organizations, construction organizations like FOSI and the rest of them. They also have the kind of data that are privileged to them, that another person out there, a banker, may not have privilege of that data. We also have data that are being generated by government agencies. And of course, I think they are one of the biggest contributors. Their position influences a lot of things in the construction industry. Because recently I was in a meeting at Federal Ministry of Works, and there in attendance in that very meeting was also NNPC, one of the group managers in NNPC, and the FIRS boss. And it was in that very meeting that it was properly cleared, they were established that WHT, withholding tax, is no more 5%. Withholding tax is now 2.5% for construction businesses. I know saying it here, it might actually be a news to some persons who are hearing it for the first time. But you can imagine how this thing would have been disadvantaged you when you are bidding in a competitive project. Instead of you quoting your withholding tax as 2.5%, you're actually bidding it as 5%. That 5% can be a great margin depending on the volume, the total contract sum that you're looking at. So having access to some of this information is very, very key to the success of your bidding or to the success of your project. Also, the second one is our domain, estimating data. Estimating data are some of the data that find its way into our estimates. They are very important in what we are estimating. A good number of them actually comes from market survey or construction market information. Then some of them are actually coming from construction companies. Sometimes maybe when you want to bid for a specific project that you don't have experience in, you now call upon other experienced contractors who are experienced in that aspect. Maybe say you want to do a foundation and you call upon Trevi Foundation or any of the foundation specialist companies that you have around. They will now be coming in with their estimating data. They are presenting it for you so that you can leverage on it also to add your markup or whatever it is that will cover for your construction management fees. Then we have the ones that are coming from professional associations and body. Talking about professional associations and body, you can talk about data that have been established by NIQS, data that are being projected maybe by QSRBN if they have through their data bank and the rest of them. These are different sources of data. And one other important aspect or type of data also that we use in construction is the data that we call financial data. Earlier, I mentioned it when I talked about the withholding task that is now 2.5% for construction works instead of 5% that it used to be before. Now, this data is actually coming from, most of them, you can get them from banks, investment firms, insurance companies, government institutions, and the rest of them. But the aspects of the data that most of us always look at as construction data is what we call project data. These data are only basically the data that are relevant in a project that are being generated by base virtue of that project. You can have an example of some of them is past projects, past experiences that you have gathered. Example of some of them could actually be project documents that you have, works that you executed in the past. Like you can actually work, you want to go and bid a similar job, you bid it 2023, and you want to bid it today, and you're not able to go and assess some of the components of that job, but you have the indices of what has changed, inflation index as at today, and you have what it is as at the time when you bid it for that job. You can actually extrapolate and then be able to recalculate it and update the cost to today's present cost. And we are basing it based on project data that you have gathered before in the past. Okay? So I just extracted some of these four types of construction data that we use. And at the end of this whole section by Saturday afternoon, hopefully, we would have seen how these data play, how we come across them without even recognizing that they're actually source of livelihood in construction. All right? So the next thing I want us to look at is we actually have to explore some data sources that are available around us. And for this, I will be a little bit more practical. I will take us away. Okay, before I do that, let us see. Some of the data that I'm talking about is for our estimating process. We have some data that are arising from our tender documents. And where we'll find some of those data, a good number of them that will guide our estimating costing and analysis will be found under the instructions to bidders. I don't know if you know about instructions to bidders. And under instructions to bidder, where you should pay more attention, because the instruction to bidder is more like a general statement. But where you should pay more attention is on bid data sheet. Bid data sheet are specific conditions that have been modified to suit the project that you're bidding on. So this is where you should pay more attention on bid data sheets. Also, there are times when you're also working on projects, you are estimating your projects. One of the things that will guide you to the end of that project is what is called the contract document or the contract data. And a good aspect of that contract data is what you call the contract conditions. Now, under that contract conditions, every contract condition is mostly almost the same, whether you're working on JCT or you're dealing with FIDIC or any of the other ones that are available. Or, okay, in Nigeria now, we're talking about the BPP standard bidding document, standard condition of contract. It has standard condition of contract inside it. So whichever one you're working on, where you should focus more attention is when you have gone through the contract documents, you extract the contract conditions, which will define your obligations and responsibilities on the project, responsibilities of parties on the project. Then the next thing where you need to focus more on is also on the particular conditions of contracts, because this is where they will now modify that contract condition to suit the particular project that you're working on. So always pay attention when you get to something like this. Also, similarly, like I mentioned before, contracting organizations have their own sources of data. We'll also look at some of them also, if it's available. Maybe if not today, we can always talk about them tomorrow. Then we have past projects, and then we have the actual data that is generated from the past project. Because you might start a project with maybe 10 million naira, but at the end of the project, before you're able to deliver it, either the cost is exceeded or the cost is reduced by a very big margin of fraction based on your experience. So that is why you may not only be relying on the past the project itself, you will now be relying on the actual data that was generated at the end of the project, at the concluding phase of the project. Now, also, when you're working on projects, another source of information that you need to always rely on also are information that are coming from your equipment record. We'll see how this one comes into play in a little while now. And under your equipment record, when you're doing your estimating, what is guiding your equipment is what is called equipment performance data. Now, the equipment performance data is not only guiding the performance of your equipment, but it's also affecting or influencing the production of your equipment. When you have an equipment that is still healthy, that equipment will have a very high production rate as against equipment that is as old as 50 years or more. That equipment may not have much production capability again, because the efficiency has so reduced that is now affecting your production. So always keep some of these informations handy, because they will always come handy. You will always require them and need to call back on any of them at every point in time. Another source of information that we work on is manufacturer's information. Oftentimes you have specifications on a project, and you need to rely on the things that has been given for those materials when you're incorporating them. A typical example is maybe say you're buying premise concrete. You're procuring it maybe from Zibaseed or from Metropole or any of these organizations that sell premise concretes. Now, for each of the grade of concrete that you're buying, already has what is called material specification. It has a composition of materials that make up that material that you're buying. You know that has established the standard that you need to work on or hold on to. And this becomes very important for you. So if at any point in time on your project, you are required to use grade 30 concrete, you will not say, okay, you're using grade 30 concrete on your pile on this particular project. But in previous project that you did before, it was grade 40 that they used. Even though they may have similarity of conditions, the peculiarity of that project that you did before that you used grade 40 is far different from this one that is using grade 30. And as such, they will not provide for you to use grade 30 and you're using grade 40 to go and price it. That also will make your costing to be very, very uncompetitive. And one of the biggest source of data also is government agencies. In fact, government agencies so affect your costing sometimes that it makes it to become very, very uncompetitive. For example, I gave you an instance while I was starting my statement here. I said, you are bidding on a job and your intention or your understanding was that, okay, you're bidding on a job maybe on, let me not use free trade zone. You're bidding on a job for any of these diplomatic missions, say an embassy in Nigeria. And one thing you need to understand about some of those organizations is that they enjoy task waivers. So out of ignorance, you did not know that some certain aspect of tasks are being exempted from them. And then you include such tasks in your costing. It simply means that because of that knowledge which you did not have, your costing will become far higher and above what it's supposed to be. And that might actually make your bid or your cost to be very uncompetitive. Now, you might be looking at it like, just, is it not about 2.5%? Yes, it's 2.5%. But when you reflect 2.5% on top of a figure as high as 1 billion naira, then you know exactly how much this is that we're talking about, the difference that we're talking about. So try to increase it up to maybe 3 billion naira. You realize exactly how uncompetitive your cost has become because of just that fractional 2.5%. Okay. So now, so what I have here is a typical example of a bidding document. Because if you go back to what we were doing before, what I was saying, like I was saying before, construction, every construction project or every construction data has a beginning. And that beginning is where we want to take it off from. For you to start gathering construction experience, it has to start with you bidding on a project. That is why I choose to take it up now from this place. Now, presently in Nigeria, there is a law that for every project that is being procured with public fund has to be with the BPP standard bidding document. And this, what we have here today, is a typical example of that standard document. I'm sure we have seen it a couple of times. A good number of us are actually into consulting or contracting organizations. So we come across these documents oftentimes. But where I want to take our attention to, I mentioned to us while I was saying, the sections where you have some of these informations. For when you begin with standard documents, we move over to, because where you get most of information that will end up in your estimating or your costing, you will find them under your instruction to bidder. And where we'll pay more attention, because this is more like general instruction to bidder, where we'll pay more attention is under the bid data sheet, right? So let's get to that now. Now, our bid data sheet now is actually on page 33. This is your bid data sheet. For purpose of this exercise, I've gone ahead to highlight some of the basic changes that has been effected on this bid data sheet, especially the ones that I want to call attention to. They are on yellow. Now, in this bid data sheet, be careful. These are the things that will be giving you instructions of cost items that you need to consider in your costing. If you miss any of them, there is no apology for that. There is no remedy for that, because you are supposed to be well guided according to this. So here it says that the price quoted by the bidder shall be adjustable. And now by this now, what it's talking about is that whatever price that you have quoted may not eventually be the final price that you will get based on this adjustment factor. I will show us the adjustment factor, but for the purpose of what we're doing tonight, we will not talk much about it. We'll just browse through it and continue. Then another cost item that you need to consider is here under ITB. ITB actually stands for Instruction to Bidders. ITB 18.1, which is the bid validity period. Now, this simply means that if you price your bid today, that your bid is supposed to be, the price that you're quoting today should also be, you should stand by your bid until after 120 days. Sometimes you might say 180 days. It used to be 180 days, but because of the volatility of our economy, it is now coming down to 120 days. And believe you me, you can actually imagine what can change within a space of 4 months, like we have it here. So for you to now consider these things, you now have to do your projection. We will do a little of that projection also in the course of this training. You do your projection as, okay, this is the price of this commodity today. What will it be in the next 4 months? All those things is what you will now put into factor in establishing the cost of your bid. So this is the first one we note. The second one you also have to note is the bid security shall be required and shall be valid for 150 calendar days. And of course, we understand what is bid security. A bid security is often a guarantee that enforces the bidder to stand by his quotation. Let it not be that we are doing a child's thing. A bid security makes sure that you're not just coming here to come and distract other people who are serious in bidding for the job. You actually have to put your money where your action is, where your worth is. That is what a bid security does. And for you to go and get a bid security, oftentimes, you have to go and secure it. You have to pay money. Like now, we have a bid security. They have to go and buy a bid security or a bid bond of about 250 million naira or about $350,000. It simply means now for you to go to bank to secure this thing, you will be paying bank so much for them to give you this. So it's also very important for you to know. We will also see in the course of this training, we'll see how these things are being implemented in our projects. Now let's continue. I have some questions here. QS Adebayo, it says, from my knowledge on estimates, VAT is excluded from project cost because it differs with employer or clients. Actually, VAT is not something you do up and down. VAT is standard taxation. VAT actually stands for value added tax. For every value that you're creating, you need to VAT it. And VAT is not arbitrary. It is one figure. It is established. So if VAT is 5%, it is 5% all over the place. If VAT is 7.5% where it is today, it is 7.5% all over the place. You cannot say because you're buying vegetable that your own VAT should be 2% instead of 7.5% where others are getting. So VAT is actually something that is uniform all over the country. Now, let's continue. Oh, okay, the next place I want to call attention is on page 55.
We have a question in the comment section, or more like a comment. Maybe you can use that specialty point. It's from Adebayo Shotunke, and goes, from my knowledge on estimates, VAT is excluded from project cost because it differs with employers or clients. It's a separate issue entirely. Could you please throw more light on that?
Okay, actually, I've addressed that before now. VAT is not really, like I said before, VAT is a compulsory payment for every value that you have created. Now, what happens is that because you're dealing in an informal contract, you might afford to waive VAT, all right? Like I explained to somebody a couple of days ago, if I pay you to do a contract for me today, and I paid you 500 million naira for that project. Now, because my organization was expected to remit the VAT, if you, the contractor who created that value for me, whom I paid that money, does not remit it on my behalf, it simply means that I will be charged to pay it also. That is why some organizations will not want you to pay you VAT. They will remit it on your behalf. If you work in all these organized sectors, they don't pay you VAT. Like you cannot come work for a government and you expect government to give you the VAT. No. They will deduct the VAT from whatever payment that is supposed to be due to you. They will remit it on your name. That's why whenever they are deducting your VAT, they will request for your TIN number so that the VAT tax will be credited to your account. That way the tax would have gone. VAT is supposed to actually go across board. It is a value that you pass on. You don't just take it. Like somebody was claiming that he wants to take the VAT. If they are going to deduct VAT, why would they be deducting VAT? It's supposed to be his money because in the past, he has not been remitting the VAT. He will claim VAT from the owner and eventually will not remit the VAT. I say you're only putting the person in a very wrong condition or bad position because you are supposed to be paying VAT for the value that you have created for him. I don't know if that suffices anyway, but let's continue and so that we can make progress. We have actually lost a lot of time tonight. So on page 59, there are times when you might want to start making costing in your project. When you start making claims for equipment that you have on site. Now, this aspect here is supposed to always be your watchword or your watch list, because I could not have established that these are the equipment that I require you to use, basic equipment that I require you to use on my project. And because you feel you are Julius Berger, you have more equipment that are idle on your yard. You want to go and bring all the equipment on site. If there are any cost for variation, if there are any cost for extension of time, if there are any cost for usage of diesel over what I have projected, I will always bring up this list to guide my decisions because this is the guides that I've given you. And like I said, these things was actually established in instruction to bidders or instruction to tenderers. So you don't have to go and start flaunting them and start behaving arbitrarily and expect that the client is Father Christmas, that he will pay for everything that you have. No, it doesn't work that way. So these things are always supposed to be your guide at every point in time. Now, they are asking at this very place that number one, he said they want a grader machine, which is a grader typically, and 4 numbers. Even if you have in your stock 20, what they expect you to bring on site is 4 numbers. And if 4 numbers is not going to be enough for you because you want to fast track the project, that is at your own cost. So always be very mindful of this. These are datas. These are basic datas. They are existing in a form that we don't recognize that they are datas. But at the end, they always come to play in one way or the other. So let's quickly move over to the next page, which is on page 58. Right. Now, I mentioned to us when they talked about escalation formula. Now, this is the formula that they are referring to. But we will not be talking much about this formula in this very class. Hopefully, something about this formula will come up during the upcoming NIQS workshop that comes up at the end of this month. We may have cost to talk about it since we'll be talking about costing and fluctuations in that very workshop. Now, what this formula is talking about is that for every money that you're going to be getting, this is the equivalent parts that will be added onto it by basic or by virtue of some of these other components that are acting also there, that are fluctuating. All right. And by that, now when you add 2 of them together, it will now give you the component, the main one, which you are asking for, which is PN, which is the actual cost that you're supposed to have. And like I said, I will be providing this document. It's a public document anyway for a live project that is going on in Gombe State. But the whole essence of distributing or giving out this document is just for academic purpose. It's not for you to use it for anything. This document was actually tailored for a particular project. If for any reason you want to adapt it, make sure you understand what you're adapting and make sure you know exactly what you're going to adapt before you go ahead and be quoting for a job or be describing a job that is happening in Abuja, but the contractor must have his yard in Gombe State. So we make progress. Now, finally, this is the adjustment data that we're talking about. Those components that is coming up from there will also find its way down to this point. And I don't know if anybody can see these informations here. Are you seeing FOSI, NBS? In the course of this document, we'll also go through NBS also, which is the National Bureau of Statistics. We'll look at their website and try to extract some information that we'll be using. Maybe if not today, maybe tomorrow, hopefully. But FOSI is now being recognized as a standard body. The document that is coming out from FOSI, the source of this data from FOSI, is becoming useful on this project. But the point I'm actually trying to drive at on this place is that FOSI as a body, a construction body, now have been able to, gather and aggregate data, which has become so reliable that they can now be bringing it in as a construction data that it will be called upon anytime, and the data will stand. These are the kind of things that we're supposed to be doing on our own as an institution, as a board. I just have to extract this part also so that we'll lay emphasis on that. So the next place I want to take our attention to is on 136, which has to do with the construction contract conditions. Now, after you have finished the contract condition, which is basic, this document was based on FIDIC 2017. Now, after you have talked about the general conditions, these are the specific conditions that you are talking about. And here, look at this place here. It says time for completion. If you are bidding on a job and you look at this constraint of time for completion and you don't have the resources to be able to achieve it within that time, what this information can help you do is to ask yourself, how can you crash this project? How can you be able to meet up with this time that they have here? Is it that you're going to be having like 4 teams of workers or stuff like that? And if you're having 4 teams, it simply means that you'll be having more costs. These are information that needs to come to you as early as possible so that you can put them in your cost here. And then, of course, you have the other one that says deferred liability period. Deferred liability period, remember, for as long as your deferred liability period is on, you will not have your full retention released to you. So this will guide you to always be prepared and know that some amount of your money which is being returned will not come back to you until after this period has elapsed. I don't know if we still remember some of these things which were taught when we were coming up. So having said that, now I want to point our attention to take us back now into a typical project costing situation. Now I have here with me this dummy bill, which we want to use and demonstrate our exercise today. This bill will be useful to us for the purpose of almost everything that we'll be doing today, or maybe tomorrow, some part of tomorrow, before we move over to one of the important aspects that we have in mind in this section. Damilola says, yes, we can see your screen. Thank you about that. Curious Adebayo, I don't really understand what you mean by VAT exclusion. What I mentioned earlier was that there are some organizations that are exempted from VAT, and those are the organizations that we call diplomatic missions, like embassies, like World Bank offices, and the rest of them. They are exempted from tax. So most of the jobs that you're going to be doing for them will have some tax leave for some of them. Then also, if you're working on doing any project inside all these free trade zones, whatever project that you're doing inside free trade zone is a tax-free zone. But if for any reason, anything that is developed or established inside that free trade zone wants to go out of free trade zone, then you have to pay the duty for that thing. So that you also have that in mind. And in anonymous attendee, in the quest of payment upon valuation of executed works, many of the government institutions always deduct tax, stamp duty, etc., which is somehow not taken into considerations while building cost estimate. What should a QS do whenever such situation arises? Wow. Idris Garba says, where exactly do withholding tax apply to projects? Is it applicable to construction projects? Yes. Withholding tax is a form of tax that is withheld in lieu of your profits. That is why it's actually withholding. A portion is being withheld, pending when you will now come to pay the full value of your declared profit at the end of the period. That is the whole concept of withholding tax. Okay, I am not seeing your screen or the cost or the document from where you are mentioning pages. I actually have a document with me. If my screen is not showing, please, can somebody indicate, let me know. Raise your hand if my screen is showing. Can somebody raise hands if my screens are showing? Okay, Brenda says, is there any document you are following for this training tonight? Yes, I have a document that I'm following, but I have not been able to give out the document because I wouldn't like to distract you. I have lots of information that I have saved up for this document. I'll be giving out templates. I'll be giving us a lot of things that will guide us also. So just calm down, take it easy. I just need your attention. Listen to me and hear me first. Maybe by tomorrow, we can have more relaxed conversations. And if there is need, also, we can also schedule another in-between meeting to thrash out some of these things that we're talking about tonight. Okay, let's get back. Yes, somebody asked a question and said, how do those things now come into play? While we are introducing Excel, remember, there was a concept that was introduced. And that concept was the concept that you need to use to do referencing. Now, this is my job. I have successfully priced them. This is the quantities, and this is my rates, and this is the amount. I have priced it down, and it comes down to a particular aspect, which is here. But then note this aspect, these ones, solar panel. These are specialist items, which me as a contractor, I don't have full understanding about. But because I have subcontractors that are working for me and with me, who are also specialists in this solar street lighting panel, I will send out these quotes, precisely this portion of this bill of quantity. I will send it out to them. Those contractors will price them. and send back to me. All right. Now, as they send it back to me, they will be sending it back in this form, which is what I have here. Okay, let me close this part. They will be sending it back. This is what I sent out to the subcontractors. Now, the subcontractors, I have different of them. I have the first one, which is this one, subcontractor number 1. He will price his rates and give me other considerations. And then I will articulate all of them and he will give me. And then while he's sending that quotation back to me, he's giving me his terms and conditions, which is what I have also itemized here. Now, a typical example of a subcontractor quote might look like what I have, what I'm bringing here now. Looks like this. This is a typical example of subcontractor quotation. But somewhere down, the subcontractor will now start defining things for me. Now, at this point, now the subcontractor is telling me that I have this one for this price. And he's telling me that the price is in euro. And then he also has another component of his price that is in naira. How do I establish 2 of them to be able to arrive at a particular cost for this item that I have here? All right? That is what we are talking about now. Now, this subcontractor has sent in these quotations to me. And at the end of all these things that he has sent in, he will now send me his specifications and terms and conditions. Let's get to the file end part of it. You now see his terms and conditions. These are his terms and conditions. And these terms and conditions are the things that I have extracted at the lower side of that my subcontractor's adjudication. He said that I have to give him 80% down payments, 10% will be paid upon delivery of materials to the site, 5% upon commencement of installation, and the other remaining 5% upon testing and commissioning. These things are these things that I have here. Let me just open them up so that you see it clearly. Now, for subcontractor number 1, there are some add-on. These are the basic quotes that he has given me. But inside his quotation are some of these add-on that he says, there has to be VAT. He did not price withholding tax. It simply means that by the time I finish processing his contract with him and giving him his payments, I will be deducting the equivalent of either 5% or 2.5% from his profit. Because he did not price it is not my mistake. It is his oversight. So I will not take responsibility for that. Also, if he's offering me any discounts, I also include the percentage of the discount here. Because the whole essence is that I want to aggregate all of these things and add one to them as percentages so that it will be a factor that I will use to escalate his prices. And that way, all these components will be built into his rates. That is what I did here. Now, remember, his initial quote was about 6.5. But by the time I escalated everything to 1.075%, it gave me about 6.9. And then this 6.9 is now what I will now use to multiply the quantity to give me his rates. I will also go ahead and do the same thing for all the subcontractors. In fact, I think there is one that quoted in US dollars. Good. This last subcontractor quoted his own in US dollars. Now, the exchange rate he quoted for me is based on $800 per naira. And then he's also quoting VAT for me, and he's giving me a discount of 15%. And then there are some items that he called third-party items, and those third-party items actually amount to about 15%. So by the time I sum up all these things together, 15 minus 15 will go out, will cancel themselves, and this 7.5% will be added onto my 1%. This is already 1% that I have here. It will be already 100%. 7.5% now will be the add-on. By the time I multiply it and I come down here, convert it to naira, that's $8,532 that he priced that item. Converting it to naira now will become 7.3 million. And that's the figure that I will now use to multiply my item here. And then take it down. I'll do the same for all the items. And at the end, what I'm now looking at is the basic pricing for every of them. This person total came down to about 44. This person's own came down to about 50. This person's own came down to about 50 also. I have 250 here. These people are almost competing, but this one is still lower. And this other one is about 51. I will go through all of these things and still go further to look at some of the terms and conditions that they offer. Whichever term and condition that is now more suitable for me. You see, I am not looking only on their rates, because there are other things that they are bringing in which is not in their rates. Maybe they are not giving you any discounts. Maybe they are not giving you any withholding tax. These are some of the things that you need to watch. But by the time you put all of them on the same pedestal and you're able to compare them, you discover that the lowest among all of them is 44. Then come to think about it. What are the conditions that 44 is asking? Are his conditions better than the other ones? Because if 44 is asking for 100% and I don't have that money 100% to give to him, it simply means that even though he's bidding lower than every other person, his terms and conditions are making it difficult for me to accept. So I'll have to go and look for the nearest person who is giving me the best alternative options. And that's the one I will get. And by the time I take up all these people, all their quotations, that is what this other column is doing. This column is telling me the column that I have to use, the quotation that I'm going to be using. You must only use one subcontractor at a time. You cannot use two subcontractors. Use the lowest quote from contractor A and add it to the lowest quote from contractor B. No. The essence of adjudication of subcontracts is that you're trying to put them on the same pedestal so that you can be able to make informed decision on which option is the best for you. So for us here in this analysis that I did here, the best alternative option for me is number 4. Number 4 is actually hidden at the moment. Now number 4. And number 4 is actually about 44 million. I know you might be looking at that, it's less than, okay, it's actually lower than the other 44. That is why up here, I have it to be selected as 44. And when I have 44 selected, that's column, this use column is only picking the submissions of 44. And this figure is what is being returned into my bill that I have here. Now, this is the first leg of it. This is the first part of it. All I have just done here is to price this thing to establish what I call cost of work. This is my cost of work. It is not my offer. My offer will actually include other things that we are going to look into now. Now, when I'm going to do my offer, I will copy the whole of these rates, the whole of this, column, rates column and amounts column, and open up another sheet on the side. Now, what I'm doing here is, I will explain this one later. What I'm doing here is, this is equal to that my rate that I have here, the rate that I've already established, times a factor that I am going to establish very soon. That factor can be any amount, anything. It can just be 1 times 1. What it simply means that this is the factor that you will be using to escalate this amount to be able to cover up all the add-on that you want to add on top of this, your rate. You want to add your house rent, you want to add the new car you want to buy, the materials you have added, the cost of new site and all those things. Those are actually part of the add-on. At the moment when your rate is standing like this, it is 100%. That is why you multiply it by 1. But when you want to add any add-on, those add-ons will now be in terms of percentage that you have to be adding. All right? During the course of the Excel, we are taught this thing. We are shown that you can actually come here and put a figure, put maybe 1 on this place, and then use here. This add-on will now be this times that one that you have established here. The whole essence is that when you change this one, you don't have to be changing it for all of them. All of them will change automatically. As regards to when I change it to 3, it will increase again. It's no more 4 points. It's now 6 points. So this is the essence of it. because you're trying to create a basis that it will not be escalating by itself. All right. We have already done this before now, but I only trying to tell us how we actually use it in reality when we are doing our bidding. So the next thing we are going into is what is called actual pricing of your bid. Because what I did here is just estimating or costing. All I have just done on this place, trying to assign my rates, is called costing. The actual pricing of your bid is when you now have to consider other add-ons, other things. So let us come down to this overhead pricing of my bid. This rate that I have here does not contain any overhead. This is actual cost of work. What it will take me to remove this material other than topsoil, it's exactly this amount of money, which is only the cost of material, cost of plants, cost of labor, and any other thing that you may think about, excluding any other add-on. But when I come under my add-on now, I will now start estimating what are the add-on that I need to be talking about now. When you're beginning to establish your add-on, doing your pricing, you need to know that what you'll be adding on top of your pricing are basically of two nature. One is called direct cost, which is the direct cost on the job. And the second one is called indirect cost. One of the aspects of a direct cost on the job is what you call your preliminary. Contractors' preliminary are direct cost on the job, because the more work you have to do, the more the preliminary will become intensive based on your experience and based on your abilities also. So typically also, I just demonstrated that we have a project here. The project is supposed to last for 18 months. And typical preliminary that a contractor can have are just this, basically: accommodation, furniture, medication, staff emoluments, and bonuses. And all of them has been established to be about 90. And typical of our preliminaries, every preliminary is being distributed, whether they are time or fixed. So while you're doing this one will come into play when you're talking about your cash flow. We have a demonstration of that also in this presentation. Then we move to the next item, which is equipment. Remember, I told you that you need to be careful with your equipment. You must not exceed the number of equipment that was given to you on the instruction to tenderers. That is where it is important, even though you have 20 concrete mixers, you take the barest requirements that is expected of you in that project. That's why I have this list of equipment. And the essence of having this list of equipment here is so that you can be able to establish the depreciation value that is being paid for this equipment. For each time they remain on your project, you are supposed to be paid for it because you have engaged them. You could have actually placed it in a different project, but for you to have that you have brought them on this very project, you are supposed to be paid for them. Now, some of them are the one that will be found that will be used for a particular project, and other ones are the ones that cannot be used for a particular project. What I mean by that is that my concrete batch plants, the cost has also gone into concrete work itself. So there is no how I will add the depreciation here, whereas the cost has already gone into concrete works. Similarly, also the silos that goes alongside with the concrete batch plant, for concrete works. Another thing also is when you are working with batch plants, also the final output of asphalt also has this the cost of the material already inside it. So there is no need for you to bring up the depreciation cost of the material here also. Then when you do that finish, you will come down with a figure. Another one that is very important also is your project setout. Your project setout, you basically have to go through the items. These are the equipment that you'll be using and their quantities and the amounts. And then of course, you now talk about the labor, the surveyors that will be doing the job for the period that they will do the job. When you establish it, that will be the cost of your setting out. And then we move further to the one that will interest a lot of persons more. Okay, we have the site offices. You establish your site offices. And when you establish your site office, this is the basic cost of the site offices to run it for that period of the contract, which is 18 months, like we have mentioned before. Now, the one that will interest you more is on these aspects. Remember, when I was discussing the bid data sheet, we mentioned something about advance payments. Now, the advance payment will tell you how much it is that the contractor will be entitled to as advance payment. Likewise, also, it might also tell you, okay, performance bond, how much the contractor has to pay for performance bond. Now, for typical example now, the contractor is required to establish what is called all contractors risk insurance. Contractors all risk insurance. And then the contractor that insurance is supposed to last for the period of the project. All right. That is 100%. But the value that it will be paid will be about 25%. When you're going to procure the insurance premium, the insurance company will now be charging you about 0.25% of the value of total worth of work that you're doing. That is how you're calculating this insurance. It's very important. If you need me to repeat, I can always repeat it again because I need us to have this understanding. When you're calculating your insurance is based, your premium for your insurance is based on the value of what you're insuring. And in this case, you're insuring the work. The value of this work to you, the contractor, is about 3 point something, which is the total contract value on the clients. So that is what you're supposed to be insuring here. And then the insurance company will be charging you 0.25% as premium. Now that would be 0.25% of the value of the contract. That is why you have it that what you'll be paying the insurance company, the cost of the insurance for you is this. Similarly, also, when you're securing advance payment from a contract for your payment, now the advance payment is about 30%. All right. You're going to be getting 30%. And then the insurance company, now this is a big difference. Look at the difference between two of them is that the insurance that you're having on the project is for the duration of the project. Whereas the advance payment you're having on the project is per annum. All right. That is why you have, even though the advance payment, the value of the advance payment that you'll be paid is about 30%, but the insurance company will be charging you 0.2% per annum. And because our contract will last for a period of maybe 18 months, which is now more than one year, that is why you have to multiply it by the number of period that it will stay. Okay? That is when you do not do the thing. This is the actual value of the project minus VAT. Because when you're paying you advance payments, they are not paying you advance payment with VAT. They will first of all less VAT. And some people might even less provisional sums and all the rest of them and give you only the basic cost to you. So now you have removed VAT from the value. That is why it has come down to this. Then you now pay 30% of it. And then the equivalent of 30% that you're going to be paying is about 2%, which is the actual premium that you're paying on the advance payment that you're receiving. And then you pay for 3 years that the advance payment will now be coming. That will give you this amount. Similar thing also is being done when you come to performance bond. All right. But then let me call your attention also. This amount, the premium cost of your either your performance bond or your insurance that you're getting is not static. It is based on your negotiation, based on the contractor's rating. If you're a very good contractor and you're doing very well, more insurance companies might be interested in having businesses with you. So they may be coming constantly to you to come and say, okay, whatever amount of money that you want to come and do, as for whatever value you want to do for your advance payment, they are willing and open because they know that you are always performing and completing your jobs. There will not be any need for you to default. Therefore, they are interested because to you, you are a less risky business for them. So these things, with that knowledge now, you can always be playing, okay, negotiating your premium so that it can come down to as little as 0.1%. But if you are a contractor that is not known, and maybe they don't know whether you can be able to, you're a high risk contractor, this premium might go as much as maybe 0.5% or thereabouts. So that is how we can be able to establish some of these things. Now, when we establish all these figures that we're establishing, we are establishing them inside our preliminary. We're not removing them from our preliminary because there are going to be add-ons that will come on top of the projects. Remember, this is the net cost of the work for us, 2.06. But now we are establishing all these costs that we have been talking about since. And then we now come and summarize all of them that we have: project overhead expenses, project equipment depreciation, project set out, site accommodation and accessories, and then insurance bond and the rest of them. And these are the different percentages of the total contract that they have. And it comes down to about 402. Now, see where the magic starts happening. The moment you come down to 402, what you should not be doing is that the net cost of the work to you, which is what we have established here, the net cost of this work, or this net cost of the work now, we'll now start adding that net cost plus the preliminary. That will give us a new figure. We will pause at this point and let me take questions, and I will get back to completing it now. This is that anonymous. This is the junction, the question you were asking. This is how we play that part that you are asking on your question. Okay. Brenda, is there any document you are following for this training? Yes, I just answered that question. There is a document I am following, and maybe you joined us a little bit late. We actually started off with this presentation slide, which introduced construction data and the rest of them. And we are presently exploring some data sources for construction. And then from that exploration, we have gone into looking at how those data are actually being utilized. Because after this stage where we are, we'll be heading into fundamentals of construction data analysis, which is a different topic that we talked about. Remember, we asked you people to download Power BI, and we talked about the other time of Power Query. Those are also data analysis tools. So we'll be showing you how those data analysis tools are being used, but not tonight. That one will be coming up tomorrow and culminating by Saturday evening, or Saturday morning rather. So, okay, Francis Emeka says, would one be wrong to add that the cost of securing a bid security to insurance in the preliminaries? In sum, how do I incorporate the cost of securing a bid security in the BOQ? I just showed that now, Meka. I just pointed it out there on this section. That's what I explained on this place now. It's actually it makes a part of your bid. Okay, now there's a caveat to that now. There are some, especially in building works, under the preliminaries, they might establish insurance, advance payment bond, and the rest of them. They might actually establish them as an item to be priced on your preliminaries. So you can actually price them separately there, where it is established in your contracts as part of your BOQ. But if it is not established there and you are expected to pay for it and execute it, the best alternative place for you to put it is where we call under contractors preliminary, which is where we're talking about. All right. Aliu Umar Usman said, it's like my network is off when I am answering the question of anonymous attendance. Thank you. Okay. Francis, you keep mentioning that you withhold 2.5% of the profit. How would you extract the contractor profit when you have no idea of? Thank you. Basically, you are expected, if you're bidding on a job, to add your 2.5%. You will see how we introduce that now. Just follow me. Just be patient. The next thing that we're talking about now, which is under indirect cost. These are the indirect costs to the contractor. This is what we'll be talking about on this place now. Okay, Ayuba again, Haruna said, please kindly differentiate VAT and withholding tax. Thank you. Okay, like I said before, VAT is value added tax. For every value that you have created, you're supposed to be paying tax for it. You buy a bottle of Coke, there is a tax that you're supposed to pay. The company is supposed to be paying tax, which is value for that item that you're using. For when you have created any value, no matter how, even if it's just services or whatever, you're supposed to be taking VAT for that. So, but withholding tax is a portion of your profit, because as a registered organization, as a corporate responsibility, or is it corporate? Yes, I think it's corporate. Civic responsibility. You are expected to pay your tax. And if you're a business organization, from the very beginning of the year, to the end of your business cycle, you are expected to now calculate all the profits you have made and pay the equivalent of the tax that is expected of you. But we don't want to wait to the end of the year, because before the end of the year, maybe something can come and eat up all your money. You start giving us story. That is why the concept of withholding tax was established, so that they will be withholding a small portion of that your profit, pending when you now come to reconcile the full profit that you're able to make, pending when you now come to declare your profit. And by the time you come to declare your profit, they will now say, okay, we have over deducted profit from you. This is the balance. We'll pay you back that balance. But if maybe when you now come to declare it, you discover that you have actually withhold more profit to yourself, then this is the balance you have to pay us. That is the whole way that withholding tax. That is the concept of withholding tax. Okay, Kyosademola Adewumi says, please repeat all the bond explanations. Wow. Okay, let me quickly take this one before I do that one. Please, I need more explanation on insurance on projects. I don't know if the people asking about this insurance thing actually followed up from when we are introducing when we are talking about this bidding document here. You are not just inventing things. You're not inventing things. Anything that you are going to be adding on anything that is relevant on your project will be things that either by your experience or that are explicitly required by virtue of the tender document or project document that you're working with. And I give an instance. On this project that I have here, that we're looking at here, it requires that there will be 0.1% contract that will be withheld for every liquidated damage. Then about 15% will be given to us as provisional sum. Now, just mark this. Remember this part now. I will get to it very soon now. Now, it simply means that for every provisional sum item that you have in the bill of quantity, the contractor will execute it. Then the actual value that the contractor will now receive will be 15% of the value of that provisional sum. That is how this one plays out. I have a typical example in this document we're looking at. Then again, we have total advance payment. The total advance payment that the contractor is expected to receive from this bidding document is about 20%. What it simply means is that when the contractor is going to secure his advance payment guarantee, he would only go to secure advance payment for the value of 20% of the accepted contract amount. If, for example, he initially, when he was doing his tender opening, he bidded for 50,000. Then because of the discussions, he now discounted it to 14,000. He will be paid 20% advance payment on 14,000, which is the final accepted amount. And now, of course, the contract agreement or the tender value will now change from 50,000 that he initially bidded to 14,000 that he has accepted. That is how this one works. And also note this part also. Deduction shall be made for amortization of minimum of 13,000. This is when talking about deducting this 20% that you have here, how it will record amortization of advance payments. If there is time, we'll still demonstrate this. I have something prepared for it also on what we are doing. So, okay, let me just get back to the document we're working with. But let your questions be coming in so that we can attend to them when we have time. And if anybody wants, I think, okay, now we go on. What I try to explain here about insurance is, they're asking me to repeat this. For every insurance that is procured, you're not just procuring insurance. If your project does not require you to procure contractor all risk insurance, there is no need for you to go and procure contractor all risk insurance, because the premium for all risk insurance most likely will be higher than you doing insurance for either your labor or only for your equipment or only for the project that you're working on itself. All right. So you have to try to follow the document requirements, the bidding document or contract document requirements. That's the contractor, that's the insurance that you'll be procuring. In this example, our bidding document requires that we pay 30% as advance payment. We'll receive 30% as advance payments. And we know very well that our contract duration is 18 months. Actually, when I was doing this, the contract duration was more than 18 months. That was why you have 3 years that place. But we have our contract duration is about 18 months. And when it's 18 months, it means that 18 months is more than 1 year. And the interest that every organization, be them insurance company, be them bank, be them financial organizations, every interest that you see is per annum. That is the basis of every interest. Then if for any reason you want to reduce your interest to period of months, then it will now be that interest divided by 12 times the period that you'll be taking it. If, for example, I have an interest of 12%, and then this 12% that you're seeing, especially the interest that have been declared either by banks or by financial organizations or insurance companies, this interest that is being declared is per annum. So if you want to use it only for a month, that will be 12% divided by 12. That will be 0.01, or what you call 1%. All right, every month 1%. So for somebody who wants to use it for 3 months, that will be this 1% times 3. That will be equivalent of 3%. All right. So that is what it means here, that advance payment that is required on this project is 30%. That's what they will give us. But the premium that the insurance company is requesting for, they said because of they know us or they don't trust us much, that will pay 0.2%. And I try to let you understand, insurance premium ranges from 0.05 to about 0.5, depending on the contractor's rating before the insurance or the procuring, before either the bank, or because you're getting your advance payment from banks, or you can also get it from your insurance company. So it depends on your rating. When they know that you don't default, you always pay, you always complete your projects. If they give you advance payment, you will not leave it and abandon the project and run away with it. That is why they can actually afford to give you small premium. That becomes your advantage. Then also on performance bond also. Performance bond is that the value of bond that you are expected to secure is 10%. But the insurance company or their bank that is giving you performance bond will charge you 0.2% because of relationship, because of their rating. So it simply means that for you to now determine the value will now be, this is 0.2%, and you are expected to have performance bond that will last for a contract of 10 years. It simply means that they will be charging you 0.2% for the period of 10 years. Because every year they will take it, every year they will take it, every year they will take it. But once you're going to, the moment you say that this thing will last for 10 years, they will not tell you exactly how much, they will just give you a figure that you have to pay. In this my calculation now, they'll just give you that you pay the 1.2. Now, somebody seeing 1.2 may not understand that 1.2 is for the period of 3 years that you have taken that this bond will last. All right. Now, when you have itemized all the insurances and bond that you're going to be using on your project, you sum all of them up. And just like other items and components that you have in your contractor's preliminary, you sum all of them up, add all of them together, aggregate them and add them to the cost of the work itself. Because you are expending this money to achieve this work. So all of them will become, this will be the new cost of the work. Now that brings us this place. I want us to pay more attention here. This indirect costing is a management decision. The estimator has done his own. He has estimated everything. He has come up with a cost for the work, which is about 2.06. He has even gone further to add other expected preliminaries that we're supposed to use for the work, which is about 2.46. Now, the management will now sit down and start asking themselves, okay, what are we going to be taking? Are we going to be drinking coffee while they are doing this job? Management fee for us to manage this project, because it might require us to move around. It might require us to send, do one of few things that will cost us money. We'll say, okay, we'll take 2%. Forget about this part. Just ignore this, that this part is existing. Ignore that this part is existing. So let me just delete all of this part here. Ignore that this part is existing. Now, this is just numbers. I am just typing it randomly. Okay, management fee. How much are we going to be charging? We say we'll charge 2%. they will enter 2%. Head office is usually being calculated because it is a function of your overload. You know the overhead now is a function of total expected project that you're supposed to have in a year as against your responsibilities, your outflows. When you now do the math, they say it's usually a range between between 2% or 1% to as much as 5%. So based on what you have established your own to be, you can say, okay, our overhead is 3%. Then there is this aspect, which is project risk. We will not talk about risk in this training, but risk is something that I have in mind. I'm working on any of our presentations. When I have the opportunity, I also present it how we'll do some of these project analysis and risk. So, okay, because we don't understand the design, we don't know the contractor that designed this and has the consultant that designed this project has a penchant for overlooking details. He's not too careful. And when you do projects with him, you end up discovering that the project of 5 million will end up costing as much as 7-10 million because of details that were not there. You now ask, okay, let's all say project detail of maybe 1%. But in reality, you're also supposed to rate the risk. There are calculations that you're supposed to use to establish how many percentage you're supposed to apportion for your risk here. And then we'll come down to the next one, which is construction risk, actually. Okay, this project is somewhere in far northeast, and we know the restiveness and insecurity that exists in that environment. What shall we do, or what can we do? It's okay for us to do this thing. These are the things that we need to put in place to mitigate the risk. And as such, okay, it will cost us about so percentage, 0.5% of the total contract sum. You establish that. In Nigeria today, this is an aspect that nobody can afford to overlook. Price variation risk. You know that you can actually bid a project today, and in the next 24 hours, that the cost of that project has changed, which is where I pointed out to when I was talking about this thing, when I showed us bid validity period. When you're discussing your bid validity period, you need to be sure that the price you're bidding this thing today you will stand by that price in the next 4 months, like in this case of our demonstration, 120 days. Sometimes they tell you 180 days, which is about 6 months. So this is where you now factor in that consideration of that you will stand by your price for the next 150 days. So we have actually done our calculation. We discovered that escalation of prices can actually happen, give or take 5%. And then we'll now establish it and say, okay, price escalation, we'll put 5%. Withholding task, remember, if you don't price withholding task and put it inside your cost, when you're dealing with government agencies or corporate organizations, they will cut withholding task. There is no apology on it. They don't even have to remind you. Some people that are very kind enough will tell you, include VAT and withholding tax, because definitely they are going to take it away from you. Imagine you, after preparing your costing to be as competitive as possible, but you forgot to put withholding tax. And then maybe your profit is about 12%. It simply means that by the time they remove the 2.5%, you have about 10% profit. And who knows, maybe that 10% profit is not even anything, or is not even worth it. Okay? So this is important, that you have to establish a table like this of your interest cost and try to assign the percentages that are accrued to them. Yeah, Anonymous mentioned something about withholding tax and stamp duty. It was more like he was reading my mind when I was making these preparations. But here they are. You have to consider your withholding tax and you have to consider your stamp duty. These are the things, some of the advantages that multinational companies have over our local company organizations. They don't care about this thing because they feel it is their connection that is giving them the job. Therefore, they can afford to do it anyhow. But the whole essence of what we are doing here today is to tell us that construction activity that we are doing, that construction that we are doing is actually a business. And since this is a business, we have to make it to be as profitable as possible. Not to make it profiteering, rather, but to make it as profitable as possible so that we can always remain in business whenever we come. All right? So when you establish all of these things together, and all of them together will come down to about 27.5%. Wow. The question is now, how do you now apply this 27.5% on top of your project? Some people will make the mistake of doing what I'm trying to type. They will not say, the cost of my project, assuming my cost of my project is 1,000. Some people will make this mistake. of saying it is now 1,000 times 1.275. This is a very wrong concept of it. All right? It is not it. Rather, inside this 1,000 is 100%. Now they're just adding all these other ones on top of it. Whereas the right way of going about it is with what is called markup. Markup. And by marking up, I have tried to establish a formula here that will guide us on markup. That formula on markup says when you take one portion, which is the price, and you want to remove this indirect cost from one portion. Okay, let me use that 1,000 I had here. The value of what I need, or total cost of my work is 1,000. All right. But the reality is that this 1,000 is about 100% of my estimate. Okay. Now, what I need to do is I want to get a factor that will remove inside this 1,000 so that when I remove that 27.5%, I will still have the equivalent of 1,000. If I do this in which I did before, which is times this times 1.275, it will give me this amount. Okay. Now, by the time I do remove 1,000 from here, it will be giving me about 0.250 naira. But this is not the same as when I would do this amount divided by open brackets, because this 1,000 is 100%. 100% already. I want to remove this part because this part is not supposed to be part of this 100%. That is why I will now say another 100% minus 0.275, which is this percentage that I have here. Are you seeing the difference? It simply means that the contractor or the estimator who is bidding 1,275 naira is actually losing so much money. And the equivalent of what he's losing is about 104.37 naira. So this, I don't want to waste much time on this because there are so many things that we need to cover up in the course of this training tonight. So I will, if you need more clarifications on markup as against percentages, you can always reach out to me at every point in time. I will give that direction. So now we have our indirect, which is 100% of this cost that we have here. We want to extract the portion of that 100% that is our additional indirect cost. We remove it and it will give us a figure. That means that figure is now what we now use to divide our costs. All right. So when we divide it, it will actually give us an amount. That escalation I did, that demonstration I did, let me demonstrate it again so that we'll see it clearly. 1,000 divided by 1 minus 0.275, close brackets. Okay. Now, if we now remove 1,000 from inside it, it will give us about 370 something naira. And if we say divide it to remove, multiply it by that our factor, multiply it by 0.275. It will be multiplied by 0.27. Okay, this is going to be minus. It will be giving us about 370 something naira. Now you see that this is the same amount that we added on to 1,000 naira. And when we minus it again, it still gave us the same thing. But if you do it with the other one, it will not give you the same thing. So it's better for you to always follow the path of markup. And how you do markup is that we have established that the formula that we need to use for our markup is equivalent of 1 divided by open brackets 100% minus the same percentage of our total additional items that we are adding, or indirect items. We do it, it will give us a factor, which is about 1.38. So everything that we want to include this percent on top of, we multiply it by 1.38. So if you want to now include it on top of this amount, it will now be this amount times 1.38, which will now give you the figure that you have shown here. Okay? But then it is not yet complete. Once you have gotten up to this stage, you have done a good part of it. Remember, there are some aspects of jobs that you're not supposed to collect profit upon. Works that are not being done by you, you're not supposed to be collecting profit on top of them. Rather, what you're supposed to be collecting is attendance and I think some level of profit, maybe special attendance and some level of profit. And a typical example of them is what we have somewhere here, where we're talking about. Okay, it's not here. It's established somewhere where we're talking about percentage, about 15%. Look at here now. The way you have the one for provisional items, if you're doing on buildings or projects that require some prime cost items, you will also have a percentage that the contractor will be entitled to receive. Okay? Okay, I have some questions already. It says, please, I need more explanation on insurance on a project. I think we have attended to that again. QS Atahiru. Victor Chikwendo. What if I decided not to declare my profits and allow them to take the 2.5% withholding tax that has been deducted? Thank you, sir. If you decide, you can never know whether they're actually deducting more than you actually get as profit at the end of the day. That is the whole idea. The whole concept is like overseas. You hear somebody that said, okay, they return Essex tax to him. That's because they have a transparent system that is already functioning very well. But for us here, we don't have that case of the government returning tax back to you. Rather, what we have is them writing off your future tax. They can say, okay, since we have deducted excess tax for you, we'll give you tax holiday, tax leave, and exemptions and the rest of them. That's how that one works. And then Alexander says, I had a client that requested for APG from a bank rather than an insurance company. I actually argued it out because I know I can negotiate for a lower percentage with an insurance company better. I realized that the client doesn't have much trust in insurance companies. Nikon Insurance. How do we convince our clients otherwise? Mr. Alexander, if I am doing a job with you, I will only request for guarantees from organizations that I trust that will comply with. I will not be, exposing myself up to you and maybe your cronies so that tomorrow my money will enter one chance. No, that's actually a wrong way. That's actually a wrong thing to do. The best thing to do is that if you're requesting for APG, it is only wise that you request, since because all the insurance companies and all the banks may not be too healthy or complying with you as a contractor or as a client. So it is only important that you request for from insurance document like that from organizations that you know will not default. And then there is another aspect that is very, very important, and that is the aspect of not allowing banks to capture or to define the terms and conditions in that document. Example of what I mean by that is this. If you come to this document, there is a section that contains attachments. Inside those attachments now, you now discover that there are documents, formats that has been provided. All your own is just to fill in the gaps. Because when you give room for them to start filling in for you, contract forms here, when you give room for them to start filling in for you, they will not capture it and put conditions that will favor them more than favor you, the clients. All right? So this is where it is important as a contractor, either as a procuring entity, that you are the one that will be capturing the language of the document that you're asking them for. All these ones that are in italics are the ones that you'll be providing. All the spaces that you need to fill in have been provided for you. And you can be rest assured that this document is not favoring one side. And it's not bringing in some fine prints that will now be, enslaving the client against the contractor who has secured this thing for himself. So it is important, maybe you're working on the client side or on the consultant side, always watch out for some of these loopholes because you can never tell how adversely it might affect you. Okay, the last question that we have here before I continue is from Aliyu Usman again. He says, why do you pay withholding tax at every end of the year? No, you don't pay withholding tax at every end of the year. You pay your tax at every end of your financial cycle. It must not be by December period. Okay? But withholding tax will be withheld for each transaction that you are making, because you are expected to make profit from every transaction that you're making. So therefore, a portion of that transaction will be withheld as your profits. Now, part of the reasons why the government actually regulates withholding tax, the percentage up or down, is to regulate how much people are making, so that they don't end up importing more inflation, maybe as an economic control measure as against inflation or thereabouts. So that's why you will always be declaring your interest at the end of every cycle, whether your own is monthly, yearly, or whatever. Now we'll go further. Now, I was trying to explain to us now, when you're working with subcontractors, you're not the one that is going to be receiving. And I gave us an example. I have a subcontractor here whom we have chosen, which is subcontractor number 4. Now, this subcontractor number 4, he has already priced his profits. And we ourselves will not be pricing our profit on top of his own profit too. That will be excess profits and may not make our estimate or our price, our bid, to be competitive enough. Rather, the client has provided that we should also collect attendance for every work that will be done by the subcontractor. And for every work also that is provisional sum, we'll be taking 15%, just like we have been shown from the contract documents. All right? When we receive all these things now, the contractor now subcontractor we are going to be using is this one. He will be doing all this work for us. And when somebody is going to do this work for us, what is it that we're going to be taking? We're not going to be taking profit from this job. He will take his profit and we'll take our attendance, because it's not going to cost us anything. All right. I know some persons might argue, yes, it is, you have a kind of an insurance on the job. Don't forget also that whatever insurance that you have on the job, this contractor also has the same insurance for you. While you're holding up that insurance on behalf of the client, this subcontractor, contractor number 4, is holding up the same insurance for you, and by extension on behalf of the client. So when we come down here, we do it differently. This is for works that you'll be taking profit on, which is what I've just shown us here. Indirect works that you'll be taking profit on. But for indirect works that you'll not be taking profit on, there is a little tweak to it. And that tweak is that the whole percentage that includes profits will be removed. The whole aspect that if you have to just sum up from here to this point, because our profit is about 12.5%. If you have to sum up from here to this point, which gives us about 15%, that is what you're supposed to be doing. If I do 1 divided by open bracket 1 minus 0.15, it will be giving me the same thing as this. It simply means that the portion that constitutes your profit has been removed. That is why this amount, this escalation factor, is now smaller. Okay? Now, I will pause here and move over to the bill of quantities. Now, in the bill of quantities, what we're going to be doing is that every item that we're going to be executing by ourselves, we'll multiply it by this factor. And every item that will be executed by a subcontractor, we'll multiply it by this factor. Now we'll come back to our bill. Remember, this is the pricing aspect of us. We have already done the costing here, which is on this side. Now we are doing the pricing. Remember, I told you that pricing is all about applying additional items, considerations, add-ons on top of your estimates already. Now I will come down to here. My indirect is about 1.6%, which is taken directly from this place. Sorry, it's now for indirect items, it's about 1.18%, because we're not going to be doing any, we're not using any, what do you call it? Any profit. We're not taking any profit from it. Okay. But for this one, this factor that we have here is not the end of it. We have already established this factor. Now, there are other things that will now come on top. Remember, I mentioned to you that you also have to consider provisional cost and PC sums. Now, when you execute your provisional sums, most likely you have something like 5% profit and 7.5% attendance. Now, when you sum two of them together, you'll be getting something like about 12.5%. But it is not static. It is based on the situations, the peculiarity of your contract. That is where you establish the figure that you'll be using. Okay? So if I have some PC sums, maybe this is where I will now establish the amount of the value of the PC sum times by this percentage. And that is what will be coming in here. I will be adding them on top of the cost that I've already established. So what I did is, at this... Hello? Any question? You can post the question in the chat section so that I will attend to them while we are... Okay. That one has
we
been
have
taken care of.
some hands up though.
Okay, you can elevate anybody, let the person talk, then after you demote them again. So we'll continue. When you have gotten, if you have gotten to this stage, I think the next thing we need to do is look at here now. What we have here is, I told you that this is the factor that we'll now be using to escalate this basic cost of our work that we have here. All right. What I'll do from at this point is just, this is equal to this amount times by this amount. The work that we have before was supposed to be 2.0. This is the actual net cost of work. Then we now added contractors preliminaries. It came down to 2.4. Then by the time we now added all our add-on using the markup factor, it gives us a figure which is about 1.379. We use it and multiply this amount that we have here. I said 1.79 times this net cost of work that we have. It gives us a new value. Okay. Now, at this point, everything here now is contractor's work plus his interest. The next stage that we are going to be doing is now, we're not talking about the client's interest, which is where we have to say we separated it away from contractor's work. You don't have to apply percentage on top of these ones. That's why we have to round it up at this junction before we now start adding provisional items and PC sums. Remember, the value of the provisional item is about 145. But what we are entitled to, according to the contract document, is about 15%, or in this case, scenario that we have in this place here is about 7.5%. So it simply means that out of 45, what we'll be taking is 7.5% of 45, which is about 10. And if we had any item that is a prime cost item, what we'll be taking is about 12.5% of the value of that item, and the total will aggregate here. Then we'll now sum up this plus this plus this. It will now give us this total. Okay? Fact check. This total is the total that we are supposed to be fact checking against our contract. Because before we now start adding VAT in our bill, we are supposed to be getting almost the same thing from our bill of quantity. If for any reason you're getting one that has a difference from your document very high, then something is wrong with your calculation. What you have in this place is supposed to be exactly what you should be having in your bill of quantity by the time you extrapolate two of them together. Let me show you. Now, at this stage, we got it all from the very beginning up to here. This is the basic cost of our work. What we now did was just, we have already calculated the contractor's preliminaries. We add it on top of it. It gives us this amount. Then we now go into calculating all the basic cost of our additional items. All these additional items, these are the values so that you can always look at them. You're not looking at them as percentage. Maybe when you're seeing 0.1% or 0.5%, you don't really know how much is 0.15%. 0.5% is at about 17.049 of the total contract sum. And 2% is about 68.197 of the total contract sum. So you always have that in mind to always be checking you, telling you that add-on this project is about 937 alone. For a business of 2.06 or 2.464, you'll be taking away 937. And don't think it is just profiteering. No, it is based on the circumstances, exigencies of the circumstance that the contract is premised upon. Like we are having price variation of 5%. All the project may not have the same price variation. This is what usually pick me whenever people say, do you have any latest job that you have done? I need BOQ, I need price. What price are you asking me for? These items I'm talking about now, these considerations I have on this project will not be the same that I will have on another project. It will be based on the peculiarity of that project that I will have to calculate this add-on. You might have another project that you have an add-on as much as 30-something%. Maybe because you have other things, interest that you'll be talking about, you can afford to say, okay, your profit is 15% and no more 12.5% because it's competitive. Because you're going to be having outright, like maybe the project you're working on is going to be design and build. Because it's going to be design and build, you will have no design risk because you'll be the one that will be designing it. But you rather you will have 5% construction risk because you have already taken out the risk of your design. Since it's not you that is you that will be doing your design. It's not another person that will be designing for you. But that risk now, you're not going to import it onto this one because any innovation, any change, any variation, any observations that you see, any omission or additions that you have to take care of it when you're doing the cost of your construction. That is why you have to go and increase your cost of your construction risk. And when you do that now, you discover that you are having a different percentage. And because you have all linked this in together, it means that you're no more escalating the whole cost by 1.50, 1.3 something. You're now escalating it by 1.5. So somebody who is asking you to give him rate might not know that the nature of your project determines exactly how much rates you should be talking about or receiving from a particular project. All right. So let's not fall into that category of requesting for rates. Unless maybe when they give you rates, they will also give you this indirect cost so that you can be able to extract the indirect cost that was applied on the project and create your own indirect cost and apply it on your own to be able to update your costs. Maybe that's a better workaround that you can also use. Okay. Now we have been able to add our interest. This is the cost of our provisional sum item. We multiply it by this and it will give us this amount. We add all of them together, this plus this plus this, and it gives us this. Once we have gotten up to this stage, now we'll now go over to our bill of quantities. We'll come down to our bill of quantities. We are going to be picking, that other first one is around this point before our VAT. All right? Because the provisional sum is the last item that we added. Is the last item that we added. Remember, this factor was taken care of when we are doing this here. But this factor is not exactly the same factor as this other one. Now, what this thing does is that I like the flexibility that exists in this. I wish you're following me. What I'm saying is this: if for any reason, now in the cost of estimating or studying this tender, the contractor or the client says, no, I don't want to execute. Let me look for an item that has more impact. Okay. I don't want to execute this item again. It is zero quantity. All right. Look at the factor here. Look at my factor. This one is 1.79. This one is 1.65. Now, the contractor comes to you and says, no, I don't want to execute this portion again. The moment the contractor says he doesn't want to execute it, because you already have risk that you have assigned on the project, the cost of other items will shoot up. Now, the more quantities or the more items that the project has, the more the cost will come down. Now, when you go to look at that rate now, you discover that it has increased by 1.66 instead of 1.5 that it was before. All right. What is happening is because the more value this one has, the more this one will become less important. the more of value the net cost of your work is, the more the additional items of preliminary that you have assigned will become less important. If this project is supposed to be about, let me say 20 billion, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now you will discover that this percentage that we apply now will become small, and automatically your rate will become small because you have less additional items that you have applied, which is coming from your contractor's own preliminaries. Okay? All right. So once you have gotten up to that part, what you're doing here on this column is you're tracking to make sure that you're on the same page. If for any reason you notice that there is a big difference, a huge difference between this figure that you're calculating here and what you actually have in your bill of quantities, then know that something is wrong. Either there are some considerations that you did not put in, factors that you did not put in, or stuff like that. So when we now reach to VAT, you now do VAT, 7.5% of this amount will give us this. And this is also VAT that is established in our bill of quantity here. This is the same VAT that we have here. All right. And all of them will come down together. And then you sum from here, all this plus this. That's what this one is all about. This plus this sum will give you this one. And this plus this will be the same. So when you look at it and you discover that it's about 100% the same. The difference is about small. It's quite not noticeable. Now, to create the markup that you now use on your project is, now you have established that this is the cost of your work. This is the final cost of your work, including every add-on. Now, when you now say this net cost now before you, because this VAT, like somebody mentioned, is not your money. No be your money, or no go claim your VAT. No go they claim say VAT is your money. Always look at the money before VAT. That is your money. Okay? So this is the actual money that the contractor has. Now, this money that we have now, which is the total value of all works that the contractor will be executing, divided by your net cost of your work, which is this one. Net cost of the work, which is this one. When you divide it, it will give you a factor that this amount that you have to execute will be divided by the net cost of your work, which you have calculated. When your estimator calculated everything, it was giving him about 2.06. When you divide it, it will not give you a factor, and that factor will be about 1.65. This is a factor that you use to multiply every item of cost in your rate, minus the items that are here in your preliminaries, or in your provisional items. If I want to use the same item for the same rate for all of them, I will make sure that I don't have this amount here, that I'm not adding this amount here, because if I add it here and still go ahead to multiply that street light item, which is a PC item, by the subcontractor, this figure, I will not be noticing a difference in this my figure. Let me demonstrate it in fact. Now I have this one added now also, and maybe I come down here mistakenly. The person that was preparing this sheet for me mistakenly used the rates that I have here, because what I'm doing actually, I'm pasting. What this thing is doing is that it's taking this, is multiplying my rates by that factor that I have established on top. By this factor that I have established on top here, which is my direct cost bar. That's what that one is in. So I take it now. I take this one and multiply this one, and this one, and I say enter. Now the cost of this thing will be high. Okay. Now when you come down to my overhead, you'll now be noticing a big difference. Okay, it didn't work. It didn't multiply. Let me do it properly. It's already being multiplied by that. I think I have a provisional item somewhere. That's the one we're using. I have a provisional item, 1.4 million. Okay, the provisional item that we're talking about here now is the one that was coming. The provisional item that we have here is the one that is coming from what the engineers call bill number 1, general item, which is about 144 million. And you see that all of them are provisional item. So for the contractor to execute all of this thing, the contract said that he was entitled to about 5% or 7% that we have here established. He's entitled to about 7.5%. So it simply means that if for any reason I want to execute this thing and price it directly as my cost, see something that is very important here. Because I am pricing this in outside, I did not include it in my costing. Are you noticing it? I did not include any of it. My costing is 0 because I am going to add it separately, and I will add it here as a percentage. Where are you? Okay, so I have added it here now. What is important to me is not the amount. What is important to me is that I am going to be receiving about 10 point something, which is coming from 7.5% times this amount. It will give me 10.5. That is what I will be taking away. That is my money that I will be taking. The whole 145 is not my own. It is a job that I will do. And because the contractor does not want me to add that in as work that I will be doing, I cannot be taking profit on it. I will only take my own attendance and other things that are supposed to be under my 7.5%. All right. That is that. That's how you can come up to this aspect of 1.6%. Now, this thing which I have here is my factor. This factor is very, very important. You will always use this factor in so many things that you'll be doing. By the time we look at cash flow for this project also, we'll also see how this factor is being used. Because under that indirect cost that you have here, that is what is coming up here. And by the time you look up also something like your S-curve, the S-curve is showing you the cumulative of what you're paying out, which is the red line, as against the cumulative of what is coming in, which is maybe coming in every three months. Every three months, your payment will go up. Every 3 months, it will go up. Every 3 months, it will go up. For every place where you have the red line crossing the blue line, it simply means that you are not getting as much as you're supposed to get in that period. Like in this period here, you actually spent more money than what you are supposed to be getting at this very period. But then that is not the most important. The most important is that at the end, which one is on top and which one is at the bottom. All right. So I want to pause here and call for questions so that will channel our next discussions. Okay, I have Brenda here again. Said, but attendance allowance is not in that 1.176 to be used for the vendor's work. I don't get it because I couldn't see it in those breakdown. Yes. What happened there is that, sorry, this is actually work that was done and we took profit for this one. But I am trying to explain a typical scenario or case whereby you have a job that is not this, maybe this street light, a job that will be strictly executed by a subcontractor. This one was not eventually done by a subcontractor. We took profit for it. And that was that. Because we are bringing the subcontractor. The subcontractor is not nominated to us. If you're working on a project whereby you have a nominated subcontractor, it simply means that you cannot take the profit of that subcontractor. What you'll be receiving is your attendance and special attendance, and the other one, I think maybe some portion of profits, but not the full profit as if when you have done the job and taken the risk. Okay. So I have a question. Oluwadare says, please, can you make available the Excel sheet for the analysis of direct and indirect costs after the training? Yes, I will make available the Excel sheet, and not only the Excel sheet, we'll make available as much of the information that we have as possible. Now, Ali Usman said, so who receives the withholding tax? Because I know FRS receive VAT. Thanks. Okay. Bottom line is that the government is responsible for, the government collects VAT. Whether you're paying to FRS or you're paying to FCT or to any other internal revenue organization in your location. It doesn't matter. The most important aspect is that you pay tax. And then when it comes to tax, there is a way it is broken down. VAT, like you rightly said, is being collected by federal inland revenue. That is because other states went ahead to make their case that you cannot be taking the VAT, you cannot be taking tax federal and still be taking away some of the revenues that are supposed to accrue to us as also revenue generation agencies. Therefore, you have to leave some portion for us. That is why till now, it is only, VAT is only looked at as federal government taxation, while other states, local tax, other states are being moderated as local tax. Withholding tax is a profit tax. Presently, for your payee, your personal income tax that you have to pay, you pay it to the local authority, which is maybe in this place in FIRS, FCT, IRS. When you're paying FCT, IRS, what they are charging you as payee is what they are charging organizations, businesses and companies as income tax. So it's the same thing. That payee is not calling his own withholding tax because it is assumed that it will always be deducted at the end of the time for a payee, an individual who is working, who is employed in an organization. Before they give you your salary, they would have deducted that tax. And at the end of the cycle, they would remit the tax forward to the government or the appropriate agencies. But for a business organization, we only deduct it whenever we do business with you. So if you're not in the habit of doing that, please culture the habit of including withholding tax in all your calculations and in all that you do. Because you can never tell when you cross the border and meet the organization that does not play with taxation. Most multinationals don't play with taxation. If you do anything with them and you don't take proper care of your taxations, then you'll be the one losing your profit in the name of your oversight. So it's always very important for you to be very mindful of some of these nitty-gritties. All right. Okay. Brenda says, this means that no single profit is allowed for the contractor on the subcontract work. No, the subcontractor actually bids his own profits in. The same way that we have calculated this schedule here, the subcontractor can also do the same thing for the same subcontractor work that he's going to do. He will apportion the amount for you to say, okay, your profit on this job is 12.5%. And then you're going ahead to go and multiply all the rate that you have, multiply by 12.5%. That would be very, very disastrous. The right thing to do is you consider all your indirect costs, all the costs that will be coming on top of your project. Like we mentioned, variation costs, price escalation costs, risk, overhead, management fee. Even if you don't want to make, you want to be competitive, you say management fee is okay, make it 0.5%. That is your decision. It is your call. Or maybe overhead, you say, okay, let us go by the minimum, 1%, so that you can make your project and your costing, your pricing to be as competitive as possible. I will talk about that in, there is something I have here also that talks about that. But time is fast spent. So I want us to go around this thing, even if it means at the end of this class that we'll have an extension of by one day. I actually envisage that we can always work in that direction.
CJ. Yes, I just wanted to add something very quickly to what the last person asked with regards to withholding tax.
Yes, madam, I can hear you.
Yeah, so the withholding tax that is being deducted at source, that's what it's supposed to be deducted as source, is not really for the benefit of yes, it is taken by the government, but it's actually to the company's benefit. For instance, if CJ and Partners now, they render a service to maybe they sell something, a product that they have, and they sell something to someone, and then that 5% is deducted by that third party. Now that third party is expected to remit it with FIRS, with CJ and Partners TIN. So the thing is, there's something called the company income tax, which is remitted or which is charged to a company at the end of the year, which is about 30% of the general revenue or the general profit that the company has made. So if you're a practicing company, that 30% company income tax, you will definitely be charged for it at the end of the year for you to get your tax certificates for your company. Now, the total cumulative withholding tax that you have, that other people, that other third parties have been able to remit for you, can be put together and help you offset that 30% company income tax that you will be charged at the end of the year. So it's really not the government eating that money. It is part of it's going to help you remit your own company income tax at the end of the day. And with you, I mean you as a company. So at the end of the day, people taking and remitting withholding tax for you is to your benefit if you are a practicing company that pay your taxes and expecting a tax certificate. Because at the end of the year, that will be cumulatively put together and used to offset your company income tax. So if you're able to collect a lot of withholding tax certificates on your behalf, and at the end of the day, if your company income tax is, let's say, 1 million, and you're able to get 700,000 paid off from the different company and withholding taxes that have been paid on your behalf, then all you'll be paying is 300,000. So it's not really to the benefit of the government. It's actually to the benefit of your company at the end of the year.
Thank you for that, for coming to my aid on that regards. I remember very well some time ago, also in Lagos, when I went to make a presentation in 2021 or 22. NIQS, when I presented on something that is a brush through taxations, I had to excuse myself also at some point that I am not a tax expert. But when it comes to this one, I would like to add also to what you have just said. You have given a very clear explanation of what tax or how taxation actually works with regards to corporate tax, corporate income tax, and the rest of them. My own, all I'm advising and advocating in this training program is considering these things, because you start arguing about it when you did not consider. I have a question here that actually try to impose that. It's from Alexander Masha. He says, had some dilemma in the past, worked for a developer who built estate for cooperatives. They claim that cooperatives don't pay tax and at the same time don't issue a tax exemption, the tax exemption document. How do you resolve that, knowing that you will pay tax from the suppliers et al.? Now, what we are doing is this. All that we have in this place, on this very sheet, indirect costs, we're not giving it to the clients. We're not making, in fact, this is the engine room of every construction company's estimating. There is an aspect of this training that I have here, which is under trend analysis. I am bidding with Julius Berger. How do I make my bid to be as attractive as possible that I will be able to bid over Julius Berger, bid lower than Julius Berger? I try to bring up something like that, how we do some of those projections. It is not exact, but it gives you an edge. It gives you more like an insight into what you're doing. We may not be able to get to it this night because I like the way this conversation is going. I would actually like more if more people can come out. Let's be more interactive. It's not all about brushing through the whole thing. It's about making more impact in the conversation. So the more we talk about it, the more we review, the more we brainstorm about it, and we bring out more things that we can talk about. What I'm trying to talk about here is that there are ways that I can be able to say, okay, this is what is in the mind of Julius Berger. This is what is in the mind of Cetraco. This is what is in the mind of CGC whenever we are bidding, because I have received results from them whenever I bidded against them. And the outcome is like this. And having noted the outcome, I can be able to project what their outcome will be in the next one that I'm going to bid. And then I can be able to also target a particular discount I will offer to be able to have competitive edge over them. The whole essence of this thing is to make us to be well exposed, so that even if you find yourself in a construction company that is not always active, and then you're going to be bidding against Julius Berger. In fact, the truth is that I did not intentionally include PR in this consideration here, because the term PR can actually be very misleading. And I wouldn't like to be projecting it on a document like this. because that can go to an extent that you may not even know or be able to defend. So I did not bring it here, but to you in your organization, you know what is peculiar to your organization and things that are very important for you to consider. Those things can always come under any of these categories of indirect costs as a factor, as a percentage. And it must not exist as a percentage. It can actually exist as any other number. Then you bring it in here as a percentage. But the point I'm trying to make to us is that once you have some of these informations, data, you can be able to do whatever you want. We'll explore this one in time to come. But at the moment, what we are discussing about is about this one, about how to do our actual pricing. What we are doing, all these things we're doing here is pricing, because estimating, everybody knows how to do the estimate, how to calculate volume of concrete that is in one this and then cost it, everything. But then the pricing is the trick that we are giving out today. I have a question from somebody here. He said, Ademola. He said, are you dealing with cash flow tonight? Ademola, time is fast spent, and we like to have as much people as possible benefit from the knowledge. So we will not deal with it today. But whatever it is that we're talking about today will also find relevance when we'll be talking about cash flow, because that is where you find some of these items, like you see indirect cost, they will be coming out there. Okay. Some things that we mentioned here, like under our preliminaries, all these preliminaries that are coming in time, and they will be finding their way also in that place. Also including this cost of work and this percentage that we have here, all of them will find their way also by the time we get to that place. So I think I have the last question here, which is, I think for withholding tax, corporate organizations pay to FIRS, why business name registered companies pay withholding tax to internal revenue. I try to explain to you here, because I am very privy of that. Before now, let's use FCT, for instance. Before now in FCT, there was no FCT IRS. The FCT was the tax officer. In fact, there was no law that permitted tax to be collected in FCT. Because I remember some people went to court and they were able to establish it that there is no law. That is why some organizations operating in FCT were paying their revenues to either to Nasarawa state government or to the Niger state government. But then they now were able to make the law that established FCT FIRS. And then FCT FIRS now has a responsibility. But then the work is not there, because presently FIRS has already taken the responsibility. They have to go and find a way to extract it from them. As we are talking now, they are getting as much things away from FIRS and handing over to the FCT IRS. So if at the moment you're still paying your tax to FIRS, good and fine for you. But whether you like it or not, there are basic tax that ought to go to FIRS, and that is VAT. Income tax on personnel and the rest of them are going to the FCT IRS. Why the other ones, corporate tax that you're talking about, is not going to FIRS? But if you open a company today, try this, and I'm telling you, if you open a company today and go to collect your TIN number from FIRS, they will direct you to FCT IRS, because they are trying to release as much of those companies and give it to the rightful person who is supposed to be administering the tax, which is FCT IRS. Why they concentrate on managing the VAT, which is their sole responsibility. This is a subject to a court judge. What is it called? Court judgment. It's court judgment that declared it.
Yeah.
Not injunction. Court judgment. Court judgment is is a function of court judgments. So it's not me that is just trying to cook it up. The only task that the law permits FIRS to be collecting is VAT, while every other one will go to the local tax office, which is the FCT IRS. Okay. I have another one from QS Adelekun. He said, why should we include variation with our markup when the variation has not come up for variation order to be approved by the architect. Thank you so much, sir. We are doing modeling. This thing we're doing here is all about cost modeling. You're modeling your cost to be able to suit the circumstances that will arise tomorrow. Would you prefer to wait until when there is risk, or would you like to mitigate the risk so that it doesn't stop you on your track? What do you think would be the right thing or the right actions to take? To me, I think you know the place where, that's why the whole story I'm telling you is that you need to understand some of these intricacies, some of these important things, so that when you are costing, you can be able to cost any project. You don't have to be experienced as Julius Berger for you to be able to, because Julius Berger is also doing the same thing based on the same principle. They are not inventing their own principle. You'll be surprised that all of these factors you're talking about now, if you go to a different company, they have the same thing. The only difference might actually be that they are not working on it or looking at it on a cell like we're doing. They are looking at it as a package, a software package that has been created. Somebody has already taken all these informations out and modeled them behind the scene, that they are not acting behind the scene and you are only looking at the interface. But we here, we're not discussing about what is happening at the interface. What we're talking about is what is happening behind the scene, so that we know and we get comfortable with it. If eventually you learn, you now have access to the one that is giving you interface, you already know the power that is behind it. Okay? All right. Why should we include it in our markup? Because it's very important for you to include in your markup. It is a consideration that you're putting up. It is part of your understanding, your assessment of the project. You are assessing the project that there are some salient risk. And every risk you need to account for on your project has to be here. Every item of indirect costs that will inflame has to be here, no matter the consideration. Meanwhile, don't forget that you have already included some items that you called contractors preliminaries. These ones are on top. So these are the ones that cannot easily be assigned to any particular aspect of the project. They are the ones that you are now assigning here. And together, all of them will make your projects and your costing to be realistic. If, for example, okay, there is an analysis that we tried doing some time ago. Somebody bidded for a job last year, and the concrete, he was pricing concrete 107,000 for grade 25 concrete. That was last year. And this year now, with all the inflation and all that has taken place in the construction market, the man is asking for a variation of his price. When we now checked the cost of premixed concrete, and we look at the cost that the man actually priced the concrete, and we advised him, okay, there is no need for you to ask for this cost, because already you overpriced your work. And for us to advise the client properly on the job, we cannot advise that he should also increase the cost of your concrete. No. Rather, we'll ask you now, since you're using premixed concrete, go and get your information delivery, your listing from that place where you're getting your premixed concrete from. Give us all your add-on. Give us your factor. This is your markup. Let us calculate that. And by the time we calculate it, I'm sure the cost of that concrete will not be as high as 107,000. So that is what we were talking about. And if we don't have any other question, I think this is a better place for us to leave it off for tonight, so that tomorrow we'll continue from where we have. This is not the only thing that we have in mind. No, we also have other aspects that has to do with the application. Talk about Power Query, talk about Power BI, those Microsoft Power applications. We'll have to look at them in the course of this thing. Even if we don't have time, we can use today and tomorrow to do all this costing. And then by next tomorrow, which is Saturday, we'll have more time to walk through the application, Power BI and Power Query. So I encourage us, when we're coming tomorrow or next, to always make adequate preparations for that. I sincerely thank you for your patience. We started this program with about 111 or 112 persons in attendance, and up till now, it's only barely 8 of them that has left. So I'm so grateful for your patience and rapt attention. I hope that we have been able to make more impact in your life and not waste your time. Without saying much, I really wish us a very good night rest. Hopefully, we'll start early tomorrow by 8 o'clock. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very, very much, CJ. As always, you always come through with the energy, the impact, the knowledge, and for this, we are super grateful. For everyone that we haven't really done well on timing, we say apologies, but hey, knowledge is next to gold, right? So, but I mean, I'm just a joke. We would do better. Apologies for the poor start. That was a technical glitch that will not happen again tomorrow, by God's grace. Thank you again, everybody, and see you all bright and early tomorrow by 8 o'clock. Thank you, QSCJ, for this wonderful presentation. I think we would definitely consider the extra day because this is very impactful. Thank you and have a good night's rest, everyone. Definitely recordings will be sent to everyone as usual because we all need to go and relive this knowledge packed session that QSCJ has just delivered. Thank you and God bless. Have a good night, everyone.